This video is by Straight Goods News, SGNews.ca.
The genesis of the book really is about the Westray disaster and the harms that resulted from it. I mean, it's more than 20 years ago now that 26 men died in a very preventable disaster that was caused by unsafe and illegal working conditions. So my interest in the issue came about through the development of what's referred to as the Westray Bill, or new criminal code legislation that was introduced to try to hold organizations, corporations, and senior corporate executives accountable for serious injury and death in the workplace. Unfortunately, what's happened along the way, and that law was introduced 8 years ago, and what's happened along the way is essentially the law has fallen into a state of virtual disuse. So in other words, it's not being enforced. So part of what I was interested in is finding out why that was the case. And Still Dying for a Living is a result of the research that I've done on that issue. And I actually went back and looked at the law's development, how it made its way through Canada's Parliament, the kind of knowledge claims or dominant claims that shaped the legislation. So how it came about, for us to begin to understand how it is we arrived at the situation today.
What piqued your interest? What got you going on the project?
Well, my interest comes from my general interest in corporate crime. And as a criminologist, I'm confronted daily with discussion and debate about what to do all around traditional street crimes. And that tends to be the focus of most criminologists and those in the sociology of deviance area. But when you look at the big picture, I mean, certainly the harms caused by corporations, financial, social, economic, environmental, far outstrips any of the harms caused by all of the traditional so-called street thugs, gangs, and drug dealers combined. So here we have a society in which corporations that play such a major role are causing major harms, major devastation, and yet we don't see these things in the same ways that we see traditional street crimes. We don't treat them with the same sense of urgency. Politicians don't stand up and demand justice for many of the harms, many of the serious harms caused by corporations. And Westray happens to be one of those really in particular harms where 26 men, as I said before, were killed as a result of illegal and unsafe conditions, yet nobody was ever held to account for it. Nobody went to jail, nobody spent time in court. It was just kind of defined away as an unfortunate accident in the law.
Is there information that health and safety officers would like to have that's in your book that will help them in their work?
Well, what I think that people will find in my book, whether or not they're a health and safety officer or whether they work in the criminal justice system itself, is some of the ways that we are thinking about corporate harm and wrongdoing, or some of the ways that we're thinking about workplace accidents. And I say accidents because that's the dominant way most people think of it, that they'll understand that we need to change the way that we talk about these things, that we need to change our language, that we need to reconceptualize the harms that happen in the workplace so that we can begin to think about injury and death in the workplace as not just accidents, but as potentially culpable negligence, that somebody's responsible, somebody should have done something to prevent these things, and that they didn't.